Welcome to AGR Book Talk. I'm Dr. Felicia J. Lindsey, your host, fellow book lover and passionate advocate for storytelling in all its forms. Whether you're a reader, a writer, a book influencer, a podcaster, a bookstore owner, or someone who simply loves the magic of great stories, we're so glad you're here. Subscribe, follow, and join us on this journey. Engage with us on social media, share your favorite reads, and let's build a community that celebrates books in the most unique and exciting ways. New episodes drop regularly, so don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button, follow us on your favorite platform, and let's turn every page into an adventure together. Thanks for tuning in. Now, let's talk books. Well, welcome to our show, our podcast. Thank you, Mr. Collins, for coming on. I was looking through your bio, and it was awesome. You had
Thank you.
You're welcome. You had an extensive history in the criminal justice system. I want you to give our audience a background in what you do and what you did and how it brought you to where you are now with writing the book and your, how can I say, your ideals about your book. Because I was reading through it and you were talking about the Trinity, and I'm just really involved and I want to know more about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank the AGR staff and yourself, Dr. Lindsey, and Mrs. Baldoza for her great coordination in getting us to this point. I've had a total of about 30 years in the criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm.
I was a warden with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and then later, when I retired from that, I became a probation officer for Harris County Probation. So I've had a pretty good run in terms of, criminal justice and understanding, how the criminal mind works and
Mm-hmm.
just, and that behavior. And then also was I was a director of a youth group that me and some other of my friends had started years ago, where we worked with at-risk youth in the community and trying to address some of the issues as far as illiteracy, violence, gang activity, drug use, and those kind of things.
And
So I've
you
had a pretty vast experience, ma'am.
also had a degree in psychology.
Yes, from Texas Southern University,
Yeah.
and in psychology. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have a huge knowledge in this field. Now, when you were working with different, I wouldn't say criminals, I would just say people that were inside of the criminal justice system, and when you was working as a probation officer, what was the overall senses of how you felt when you was working with the different individuals trying to help them and get them through the system?
And like you said, I don't like the term convicts or inmates.
Yes.
It's just misguided individuals
Mm-hmm,
who
mm-hmm.
somewhere along their life, whether they were raised in a poor environment or a poor, not necessarily wealthy poor, but just in a family environment where it wasn't conducive to any positive influence. It wasn't conducive to motivating you to reach a goal like, say, college or a trade or opening your own business.
Mm-hmm.
And I've I've seen that from young kids all the way up to grown men, where they just lack this sort of spiritual guidance, and they like this spiritual drive, and they don't really see themselves worthy of doing great things, because the way they've been raised and the things that they've been exposed to. And that, when you talk about the Trinity, that's what I mean. You know, I look at us as being spiritual beings,
Mm-hmm.
So you have God, our spirit, and then nature. We're all intertwined in this life, in this existence, and one without the other, uh, we suffer. And man, more so, because nature we can't go without nature, but nature can strive without us. Probably do better without us.
That's
So,
true.
and God's always going to be there. So we're actually more dependent on God and nature than they are on us. And I think we've lost sight of that, and how important all that is, how we harmoniously live together, you know, because we have a beautiful planet.
Yes, we do.
I mean, there's so many gorgeous and magnificent things out there, and sites and places that are just amazing. And so, but I believe, a lot of these young men and teenagers that I've been exposed to,
Mhm.
they just don't have that connection. It wasn't taught to them. It,
Now,
it, it wasn't exposed to them.
when you were mentoring, how did you start to um, introduce them to nature and introduce them to how basically how we as individuals can be more bonded to nature and our spirituality?
Well, when I was a warden, some of the units I worked on,
Mm-hmm.
agricultural units, and there are thousands of acres of land that the state owns.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them had like cabins for the employees
Mm-hmm.
that you could rent for the weekend or several days. So part of my program was bringing them out to the campsite
Mm-hmm.
for the weekend that exposed them to natures. And then I collaborated with some of my friends. I had a friend that was a black cowboy. Yes, he
Wow.
did the rodeo. And
Uh-huh.
so he would bring his horse and a couple of his friends, and they would talk about the history of black cowboys. And they got to, pet the horses and ride them and ask
Mm-hmm.
questions. And then we did a salutation every morning. When we woke up, we'd have to all go outside and kneel down and say a morning prayer.
Yeah.
And the other component of that, I had some inmates that I was also teaching at the time the same thing, the spiritual aspect. And so they asked if they could put on plays for the kids. And so part of that trip was we
Mm-hmm.
brought the kids into the prison, and in the gymnasium, the offenders would put on a play,
Mm-hmm.
like a musical play, and it would talk about, the tragedies that they've gone through, and how to overcome those
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tied all that together, and it made a significant impact, because years later I met some of these kids
Mm-hmm.
that were now young men. Some of them had went on to college. Some had joined the service. Uh, yes, a few of them were in trade school, and they would always comment to me, "Man, your program really had an impact on my life."
But that's a blessing to even be able to see them come back and tell you what they got from it, just knowing that you made an impact.
Yes, and also the same encounter with a few inmates that had been released from prison. They also had the same comments, and
That's,
told me that you know my words of encouragement and my spiritual direction for them made an impact. So it works.
it does.
You got to
Now,
change the person's spirit, in the heart. You can give people money all day long.
mhm.
You can teach them stuff all day long, but if you don't change the spirit, it's not going to be that effective.
Now, also when you were mentoring and everything that you were doing, my question is, tell me a little bit more about how, or how can I say, what did you grasp from it, from that experience? I know that you gave back to everyone else, But what did you get back from it besides the mentorship that helped you go in the direction of writing this book?
Well, it's such a good feeling to
Mm-hmm.
know that you can help other people, that you can make a difference in someone's life,
Mm-hmm.
where it just transforms them into a different person, a good person, a successful person,
Mm-hmm.
a person with who now, before was filled with pain and disappointment and despair. Now they have hope and direction and success, and that's a great feeling to have, and then I believe in karma.
Yes.
What you put out into the world, what you give, you get it back.
I believe.
And I've been blessed so much, you know, uh, and I know it's related to those things that I've tried to accomplish. It's blessed me. It's blessed my children in my life. And so that's how God works.
Now, I have a question. When I know the book is Victory by Joy, what is your definition of victory?
My definition by victory, it's not materialistic. It is not monetary.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that inner joy that you have. And I tell my kids that all the time. I said, to be successful, you have to have joy in your life. You have to be healthy and you
Mm-hmm.
have to have success. And because, there are thousands of people who have lots of money, who
Yes.
have lots of fame and status and have a lot of issues. They have a lot of substance abuse issues. They have suicidal issues.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so money, you know, it's not everything, and so you have to find a balance with all those things. You have to your success should be something that brings, we all have these gifts and talents. And to me, if you can tap into that and nurture that and and build on that as a part of your life or as a career, that's fantastic because that brings you inner joy. That brings you happiness. When you have inner joy, man, it's like, you know, the world, the world out there is kind of, we have a lot of issues. And that's another thing that kind of brought me to write this book is because,
Mm-hmm.
like most parents and most good-hearted people, you know, you look at all this senseless, tragic bloodshed and violence in our world,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, places that we used to think that were safe are not safe anymore. You can't go into a church or a school or a supermarket or movie theater without the potentialness of some violent act, and it's something's wrong, in our society right now, and it needs to be fixed. And so I thought to myself, well, the more, that's the first question I asked. The next question I asked myself, more importantly, is what can and what can we do uh, to turn this wave of bloodshed and violence? Because too many of our young people are dying. We're talking about 6-year-olds bringing guns into a school and shooting a teacher. Come on now, that's not. There's something wrong,
Yeah.
and it needs to be fixed. And so, going through like the questions you just asked me, and looking at my life, and I'm not no like I said in my book, I said I'm not famous. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But I see myself as an elder. Indigenous cultures, elders were held in high esteem because they had the experience, they had the wisdom, they
Mm-hmm.
had the insight into life. And so that's where, as far as my book, I see myself speaking to people as an elder. Hey, these are the things that work. These are the things that matter in your life. And I believe, the great thing about joy,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't cost you anything, but it's priceless.
Yeah. That's true.
You know, it's attainable by anybody. It doesn't matter how old you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It's attainable by everyone. And so my premise is, if we begin first, the individual has to learn and accept and develop joy within themselves. It starts with the individual. And then you teach that to your family, and then the family goes into the community. And see, the thing about joy reflects in your aura. It reflects in how you carry yourself, how you walk, how you smile, and people see that. And that carries off into society. And that's where we need to start, and that's why I feel joy can bring victory in the individual life. It can bring victory in our family, and it can bring victory in our communities. And it's about a simple choice of making it. You can either choose to have a joyful life, or you can choose to have a meaningless life, or a life of despair.
Now, what you just said was huge. That's one big thing, is basically you have to choose to have joy. And you can choose how your life goes. That's huge. Most people don't know that. It took me a long time to learn that. It's just not you just don't come here knowing that.
Right. And I talk about the power of the
Now,
choice in my book, and how to make those type of choices.
for your readers, what do you want them to get from your book?
I want them to understand they can empower themselves with joy. I want them to, just like you said, you have to realize that they have that power, that choice to accept joy, to work towards joy, to teach it, and to spread it. And it's like a domino effect. It's no different from the opposite of that, which is hatred and evil. People teach that in the home. Children are
Yeah,
not born to be racist. Children
that's
are not
true.
born to go out and kill somebody or want to kill somebody. That's taught in the home. And so we can do the opposite, is teach joy, love, compassion in our homes. Teach it to our children. And then they go out in the world, and they teach that. And it's subconsciously, really. You have to experience these things. You have to feel these things. And it becomes a part of who you are, your character, your personality. We'll pick up on those kind of things. And, I've always taught I have a chapter on fatherhood, and specifically about fathers and their sons, because there's so many fathers out there that are not present in their children's life. They're absent. They're deadbeat dads. And I despise that. I really do. And I talk about that, and I challenge these men. You need to step up and be present in your son's life and your daughters, but more so the men. They need your direction. They need your support. They need your guidance and insight, and your wisdom and your love. That's what makes a man.
Now, with an individual, say for instance, a father, how, if they are at their lowest point, or if they don't have spirituality in their life and they're not in touch with nature, how do they find purpose for themselves to be able to go out and put that joy into their child?
Well, that's where it starts. That's where my book starts the process. It opens your mind and your
That's what.
spirit to
Yeah, yeah.
that this is real and it exists, and that you have the power
Yeah.
to have this in your life. And you need to take control, because what happens, people allow circumstances control them,
Yes.
such as violent gang violence, drugs. You allow those things to control you. And when you become a joyful and spiritual person, I ain't got time for that. I don't have time for it. I'm not going to entertain it. And I'm going to focus on what's positive and brings joy to me and my kids and my family. Because trust me, I've had my share of ups and downs and obstacles and tragedies, toxic family,
Mm-hmm.
you name it.
Yeah.
I pretty much have gone through it. But and that's the other thing, all through that, I've always had joy. Now, it may knocked me off course a little bit, but just like, a captain on a ship, you go through some stormy seas, but then you navigate your way back to your destination. And because we all go, none of us are immune to going through trials and tribulations. None of us are immune to being, hurt or
That's right.
having things that get in our way. That's part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when you have joy, it's like, okay, I'm gonna just kind of step back, evaluate the situation, and how do I need to overcome this and continue on my path of success. So I would teach fathers, that's where they need to start. Like I said, we have to start with the individual, because you can't teach a child or anyone else if you're unhappy or unsuccessful, or you have
Yep.
you're addicted to drugs or alcohol, whatever the case may be. You got to be right yourself to teach somebody, and that's where even like when I was a school teacher, I substitute. You run into these kids who are brilliant now. They're brilliant, but they have so much pain and anger, And then you talk to the parents, and you see some of these parents. Oh, it's just they're not really. I hate to say this, but some parents, they have babies and children, and they're not prepared for that. They're not prepared for it
Yeah.
mentally. They're not prepared for it financially or spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wonderful thing to have a child. But you have to be prepared. And I think that's something, my book, I talk about all that. How parents need to prepare themselves. How what you say and what you do. Kids are like sponges. They pick up on everything. And then they turn around and emulate that. Because it's what they see in the home, it's what they hear in the home. And then what gets me, a lot of parents are, these kids get in public and act up, and they have no control, but it's because what you allowed in your home, so
That's true.
that's where it starts. Because I'll tell you,
Now,
my kids, and I say this in my book, I don't like to brag, but I guess I do. I got 3 sons that are very successful, and I believe the way I raised them, and I was always involved in their life, whether it be sports or school. I volunteered at their schools. We had discussions about things, and I tried to set a good example. I'm not perfect. So, I made mistakes in my life and some bad choices in my life, but I taught them, and I taught them about choosing the right people to have in their lives. One thing impressed me one time was my sons had a sleepover at the house for their birthday, and in that room you had a Russian, you had an African, you had an Indian, and an Asian, and an African American. And here I saw the hope in humanity, because they didn't see race. They were just a bunch of young men got together who were friends. They didn't see color. They didn't see race. They just saw good people. And that's how we need to teach our children. Because at some point, this black and white thing's got to stop. We're people. God created us all. We're all equal. And we have to start teaching our children that, and so they can go out in the world. And it's changing. You can see in this generation, it's a lot different than when I was coming up or before. But we still have a long way to go.
I do see the advancement. I do have 2 younger kids, and it's changed. You can see how they have different relationships, and it's a good thing. But like you said, we still have a long ways to go. A lot of racism. But Also, I want to know about your journey as an author. You writing the book, how did you sit down and start preparing to write the book? How was your publishing journey?
I started again, like I said, I asked myself the question why, and I just felt I wanted to do something, do my part, in trying to make a positive change in our community and in society and the world, and I just sat down and one day and started writing. It just kind of just started just flowing, It was a natural flow and a natural progression. How things just kind of, I guess it just came from my spirit, you know. My book is the way it's written. I have factual information. I did research on things because I do talk about some issues, societal issues, and then I have my wisdom, my experience that I give, and then at the end of each chapter, I have a poem which I've written to summarize each chapters, and I pull all that together. I have a few pictures, personal pictures, you know, uh, and so the book is a combination of things that you can get from it from artistic perspective as well as a literal perspective.
How long did it take you to write your book?
Uh, it was about a year and a half, because it started on paper, of course, and then it went to the computer, and then just started. You get all that stuff down, and then you got to organize the thoughts and get your things that factual, but you got to get the research to back that up. And so yeah, it took about a year and a half. You were asking about the publishing part of it. I was with this company called Excel, because this is my first book. So I didn't know anything about how to publish a book. So I figured, let me get someone that claimed that they were experts at this field. And it was kind of a rocky road, to be honest with you, because I ended up editing what they said they were editing. They would make some really simple mistakes. And like, for example, they would misplace a whole paragraph, or start the paragraph and it would just end in mid-sentence. And we worked through all that. And I think next time I'm just going to self-publish myself, because I've learned a lot. And that's another thing about life. Even if you have negative experiences, you can learn from them. You can take that information and use it to benefit you.
Yes, that's the reason why I like to know about the journey, so I can, for future, or did any type of traditional publishing. When you hear it from different authors, everybody has, some trouble in the beginning. It gives them hope to keep writing and basically to publish their book. Because when I tried to do my publishing, I had issues too. But it didn't stop me from getting the book out. It didn't stop you from getting the book out. And that's inspiration in itself.
Right, exactly. So the experience, it was good. It wasn't favorable. It's not what I expected. We worked through it, and like you said, you just have to persevere through all that, and to focus on the main goal, which is to get your book published.
Now you got to show me that book.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see it.
There it is, Victory by Joy. Yeah, it has 9 chapters. Oh. And I talk about just about every thing you can think of in terms of, how to improve our lives, and, how to incorporate joy. There's 9 chapters. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Could you read a little bit from it? Just a couple of sentences.
Okay. Chapter 1, what is joy? And oh yeah, I use quotes throughout I've used quotes from Mother Teresa all the way to Snoop Dogg. So I start each chapter off with a quote. It says, "Joy is
It's relevant.
prayer, joy is strength, joy is love, joy is met. There's a net of love by which we can catch souls." And that was by Mother Teresa. I believe it is important for us to get a sound comprehension of what joy is and what it truly means to possess the feeling. Joy is known as an awareness of great pleasure and happiness that comes from success, good fortune, or a sense of well-being. A biblical view of joy, it is a lasting emotion of happiness, contentment, well-being. The Quran defines joy as being happy, remaining positive, and being at peace. Ancient Kemetic Egyptian culture viewed joy as happiness, gratitude, family, and health. Buddhism contends that joy is an internal, long-lasting feeling of contentment. Joy is also viewed as the attitude of the heart, having confidence that life will be filled with happiness, grace, and good fortune. From these various views of joy, we can surmise that this treasure is attainable by all. Joy is a choice and effort cultivated by one's beliefs, attitudes, and convictions. It is how we perceive ourselves, others, and circumstances. This feeling is also having a positive view of life and believing we can contribute happiness and serve as a meaningful purpose to the world.
Well, thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you. So, yeah,
Now,
I believe that we all have that capacity of attaining joy.
now, where can everyone get your book?
Right now it's on Amazon, and we're going to be getting on Barnes and Noble and some other sites, but right now it's on Amazon.
All right. So everyone can go to Amazon and look for Victory by Joy and be inspired and have some good tools to help them throughout their parenting journey, through life, and just dealing with difficulties that we have on a day-to-day basis. I want to thank you, Mr. Collins, for coming on and basically sharing your book with our audience. And we're going to make sure that we read this book, and everybody needs to make sure they go to Amazon so that you can leave some comments and we can help each other. Thank you.
One of the things that I was thinking about doing is having a podcast where I would go each chapter, and just discuss each chapter and do some things in the community centers, because I've taught ancient Egyptian history and African history in community centers, and just getting that word out and explaining that process, like you mentioned earlier. Well, how would you get a father who's misguided? You attend the class, and I'll break it down to you. So, but again, I want to thank you, Dr. Lindsey, and the AGR staff. You guys have been fantastic. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about my book, Victory by Joy.
Thank you. But since you brought that up, I got one more question. When you did go in and you were teaching about Egyptian and African American history, how did you feel that it impacted some of the minorities?
Oh, it made a fantastic difference. I mean, our image in America as blacks was slaves or subservient positions. We were taught, ingrained in us that, we were worthless, and we couldn't aspire to higher things and be great. The African and Egyptian history showed us that we were great before anybody else. I mean, we were building, we had spoken language, and people who had medical journals and building pyramids thousands of years before any European civilization was even thought about. And that's our history, and unfortunately, this society has tried to steal that from us. They've tried to paint that the Egyptians were Europeans. They weren't Europeans. They were migrants from Ethiopia that went up north and settled Egypt and built that fantastic civilization. They even try to say it was aliens that did it. They come up with all kind of crazy stuff just to, not to give us that credit because it's powerful. When
Yes, it
you
is.
come from that kind of genetic makeup and that kind of spiritual essence, and it's powerful. And the Europeans are aware of that. That's why they keep all our, a lot of our artifacts in their museums locked away somewhere. But we're just always being spiritual and great people. And so when you enlighten people with that information, it makes a difference. Because that's actually how I got started. Because when I was in Arlington, there was a Yoruba priestess. There's a black bookstore in Dallas, and she was teaching these classes, and that's how I learned about it. And it opened my eyes. And she said, "You need to take this knowledge and spread it." And that's what I did. I took that to heart, and it's made a tremendous impact on my life. It's made a inspirational impact on my life to go out and share, what I knew. And I continued my research and learned so much, and empower, our people and our communities. And, it's not about race. It's just knowing the truth. If you say you're a godly person, then the number one thing on that list is truthfulness. But if you, hiding the truth, disguising the truth, and lying, that's not of God. That's not of God. And so it's about the truth. And everybody celebrating their unique differences, their creative differences. We all have something to contribute in this world.
Correct.
You don't need racism, and bigotry and all that. That's evil to me.
Well, I just want to thank you and for giving us all this knowledge today and basically giving us a source to be able to help us again throughout all our differences in our lives, our problems and insecurities, and just everything that everyone is facing nowadays, young and old.
And we can do this thing. If we adopt joy in our lives, it will make a difference in your personal life, and it'll make a difference in your family and those around you. Victory by joy.
All right. Victory by joy. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on AGR Book Talk, where every story is an experience waiting to be shared. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. Stay connected with us on social media and let us know what books and experiences are inspiring you. Until next time, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going. See you in the next chapter.